My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you for pardon of my sins and grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Tomorrow we celebrate the very first Sunday of Advent, and we begin our special period of preparation for the beautiful feast of Christmas. Over the next 4 weeks, we'll be getting more and more excited each day, like little children, at the prospect of the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem. That means today is the very last day in the liturgical year. And our gospel today, taken from St. Luke, however, isn't a very joyful one. But it is the passage that the Church chooses for the last day of the liturgical year. And I imagine, Lord, that you spoke these words of the gospel with a serious tone of voice, because they're a word of warning, really. And they're words about our last day on earth. So let us listen to these words and hear Jesus addressing us directly, personally. Watch yourselves, or your hearts will grow heavy with debauchery and drunkenness and the cares of life. And that last day will be sprung on you suddenly like a trap, for it will come down on every living man on the face of the earth. Well, let's pause there for a second, because already I think we're probably a little bit confused by this passage. We hear you say, Lord, that we have to be careful, we have to watch ourselves, or our hearts will grow heavy. The things that make them heavy, well, Jesus gives us 3 things that we have to be careful about, because they have this effect of making our hearts heavy. The first one is debauchery. Well, that's impurity, fair enough. Drunkenness, okay, understand that. But the third one is the cares of life. And there we stop and we say, Lord, what do you mean? Being busy, working hard? They have the same effect on our heart as debauchery and drunkenness. And that as a consequence of this, we're not ready for the last day, which will come like a trap if we're not ready. Can you really be telling me that these 3 things are the same: debauchery, drunkenness, and the cares of life? Well, the words that Jesus uses here for the heart growing heavy is the same word used to describe the heavy eyelids of Peter, James, and John in Gethsemane. If you remember, when they were unable to stay awake and pray with Jesus. So already that gives us a bit of a clue, because clearly debauchery and drunkenness are incompatible with staying awake, with Jesus, with praying, but also our Lord is saying the cares of life. So we have to understand this correctly. And I think Pascal, the famous French writer, gives us a hint when he famously said that there is a God-shaped hole in the heart of each man, which cannot be satisfied by any created thing, but only by God the Creator, made known through Jesus Christ. So we could try to fill that God-shaped hole with debauchery or drink, but also work in the sense of striving for success and wealth, as if that will make our heart ultimately happy. But those 3 things make the heart grow only heavier and heavier. And so the heart is dragged down and is no longer able to fly upwards to God. The way St. Paul tells us this, he says, those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh. Debauchery, drunkenness, and the cares of life. He didn't say that, I just threw that in. But those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. Maybe Pope Francis can help us here. As Cardinal Bergoglio, when he was Cardinal Bergoglio in Argentina, he told this very nice story, which I think gives us a very good way to understand what Jesus is telling us in today's Gospel. This is what Pope Francis, then Cardinal Bergoglio, said. He said, "Not long ago, I read a fable written by a monk. He wrote that some boys were climbing a mountain and they found an eagle egg and they brought it home. When they saw that in their coop there was a turkey incubating her eggs, they put the eagle egg under the turkey with the other eggs. Then all the eggs hatched. The hatchlings all started as equals, but as they grew, they began to become different. When they began to have some measure of freedom, the young turkeys splashed around in the water, and the eaglet was among them, even though he didn't know how to play in the water. And every time that he saw an eagle fly overhead, he felt something inside pulling him skywards, but he couldn't fly, for he was among the turkeys. He was acting like a turkey." And then Cardinal Bergoglio, he added, "And are you acting like a turkey? You who have the vocation of an eagle, made for an encounter with Jesus. What do you live for? Do you wish to fly to the message of Jesus, already starting to live in fullness? Or do you wish to live like a turkey in superficiality?" So we see there from what Cardinal Bergoglio is saying, Pope Francis, that we could live life in either two ways. We who are made to live as eagles, soaring up to God in heaven. That's our vocation, each one of us in different ways. And we could live that vocation and soar upwards with our heart free and light. Or we could become turkeys and be dragged down by obviously things like drunkenness and debauchery, but also by just being overly immersed in the things of this world as if there was nothing else. And that's what Jesus means by the cares of life. Immersing ourselves in our work or in our study or our career as if this is all there was. And we're like the turkey splashing around in the puddles instead of being an eagle who is flying upwards. So Jesus, at the end of the Gospel passage for today's Mass, he says, "Stay awake, praying at all times for the strength to survive all that is going to happen and to stand with confidence before the Son of Man." Stay awake. Be vigilant. In other words, don't allow your heart to be soaked in those material things that only drag it down. So, going back to those three things that Jesus talked about, well, if you are with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, well then living real love, which is holy purity. Or when you're celebrating and drinking, great, not too much. Or when you're working, well, great, but without becoming a workaholic. And that way our heart stays light. It loves spiritual things and God above all. It never becomes drowsy. And then we end up like that person described in the Song of Songs, this beautiful song in the Old Testament, which apparently was a song originally composed for weddings. And it's about a woman waiting for her beloved to come and visit her. And it has this lovely line where it says, "I slept, but my heart was awake. Listen, my beloved is knocking." This woman waiting for her beloved, her heart, even when she's asleep, is always vigilant, always awake. And therefore, when the beloved comes knocking on the door, she's ready. So let's ask Jesus, let's ask his mother too, Our Lady, that we too will be ready for the knock of Jesus when he comes knocking on our door. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.